human nervous system is constantly active in processing information required to coordinate our movements. This coordination is often taken for granted. But even the simplest of movements requires a complex interaction of chemical and electrical signals. This process is best understood if it is broken down into its individual stages. Various changes in sounds, lights and temperature in our environment may affect our movements. A signal which we are capable of detecting is called a stimulus. Therefore, a stimulus is anything in the environment which affects our movements or behaviour. Humans, all other animals and plants are capable of detecting stimuli and are said to show sensitivity. The movement or change in our bodies which occurs when we detect a stimulus is called the response to the stimulus. The region of the body where the stimulus is detected is called the receptor. The region of the body which responds to the stimulus, such as a muscle, is called the effector. The sequence of events involved in a sensitivity reaction is summarized here. Firstly, we will consider how a stimulus can be detected by various types of receptors. Then we will consider how the message is communicated to the effector in order to bring about a response. The eye is a very important receptor organ, as it is responsible for our sensitivity to all visual stimuli. This is a diagram showing the cross-section of an eye. The amount of light allowed to enter this receptor organ through the pupil is controlled by a muscular structure called the iris. In dim light, the circular muscles of the iris are relaxed, so the pupil is large and lets in as much light as possible. In bright light, the circular muscles contract, so making the pupil smaller and limiting the amount of light which enters the eye. We can identify the receptor area on the diagram. The cells covering the back of the eye, known as the retina, are sensitive to light. In this section of a fish eye, seen down the microscope, we can see the retina. Under high magnification, it is possible to see the light-sensitive cells. Light passes into the eye through the pupil and is focused by the lens onto the retina. The cells of the retina are stimulated and convert the light into electrical impulses which are carried to the brain through the optic nerve. The ear is an important receptor organ which is sensitive to sound stimuli. The organ is also capable of detecting gravity changes and so governs balance.
Sound passes through the air in the form of minute and rapid vibrations.
In order to detect sound vibrations in the air, they are directed down the ear to the eardrum. This converts the sound vibrations into vibrations in the bones of the middle ear. These in turn are passed on to the fluid of the inner ear. Receptor cells in the inner ear pick up the vibrations in the fluid and converted into electrical impulses which are carried down nerve cells to the brain. The gravity receptor is a three-dimensional bony structure which is hollow and filled with fluid. Any movement in this fluid is detected by receptor cells and converted to electrical impulses which are carried by nerves to the brain. The skin is another important receptor organ. It contains cells sensitive to both temperature and pressure. These convert the stimuli of heat and pressure into electrical impulses which are carried to the brain via nerve cells. Electrical nerve impulses from the receptor organs are carried through a system of interconnecting nerve cells to the brain. The cytoplasm of a nerve cell extends out from the main cell body in long, thin fibres which branch at either end. These are known as axons and dendrites. The ends of these branches are called synapses and link the nerve cell to adjacent nerve cells. The cytoplasm of nerve cells is able to change rapidly its concentration of ions. These ions are charged particles. This causes an electrical impulse to flow from one end of the cell to the other. There are two types of response. We are consciously aware of some of our actions, and these are known as voluntary responses. Others, which we are not aware of, such as pupil constriction, are involuntary responses. Voluntary responses involve nerve impulses passing to a part of the brain responsible for conscious actions. We can trace the passage of nerve impulses for a voluntary action by considering the start of a race. At the beginning of a race, the starting pistol acts as the stimulus. The sound vibrations pass through the air to the athlete's ear. The sound vibrations are passed through the middle ear to the inner ear. They are detected by the receptor cells in the inner ear. Nerves carry the impulses generated by the receptor cells to the brain. The brain processes the signals from the receptor cells in the ear and recognizes them as a pistol shot. After the brain has processed this information, rather like a computer would, electrical impulses are sent out via many nerve cells to the effector cells in the muscles. This whole process takes place very rapidly.
Get set.
Imagine if we had to make conscious decisions about all our actions. Not only our external movements, but we would also have to think about when to secrete enzymes into our gut and hormones into our blood. Thankfully, these actions are controlled by a subconscious part of the brain and sometimes do not involve the brain at all. In some instances, a very rapid response is required to prevent injury. This is known as a reflex action and does not involve the brain at all. As the stimulus is detected by the receptor cells in the skin, impulses pass down nerve fibers to the spinal cord. This is a section of the spinal cord seen under the microscope. Nerve impulses from the receptor organs arrive at the dorsal roots. The impulses pass through the centre of the spinal cord and signals are sent out to the effector organ via the ventral routes. The impulses arrive at the effector, which in this case is the arm muscle, and a chemical released at the end of the nerve cells causes the muscle to contract. Pain is detected by the brain after the reflex action. In our everyday movements, millions of impulses are constantly being transmitted and processed in order that we respond to changes in our environment.